Going live in 3, 2, 1. All right, what is going on? We're going to get right into it, and this is going to be a short video. There's going to be a quick history lesson, and I'm going to talk why I absolutely believe that we are going to war with China. I'm going to show you that there are many, many parallels between right now and the U.S. and Japan. I talked about this yesterday, and man, there were a few people, most of the Fugel family and the people that have been following this channel, been following the news as closely as we have been following all of these signals and all of these signs. I mean, this is not... First of all, a lot of people have been called crazy in the last 5-10 years for seeing these things happening and saying, hey, this is going somewhere bad. Everybody thinks that when, the news changes by the week that somehow we were going to avoid this, or that, everything can change. I believe this is something that's been planned for a very long time, that it has been in the works. It was an inevitability, and now it's happening. So I did want to talk about, I'm going to show you today, and the news that is happening today, the 125% tariff, the response to the retaliation from China. Of course, we already knew yesterday, right at the deadline, it went up to 104%. Essentially, this was the comment by Donald, says, based on the lack of respect that China has shown the world's markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charge to China by the United States to America to 125%, effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize. Now, the thing that people were going, oh, this is all clickbait, is the fact that I said this could start a war. People think, oh, this is just a trade war. China, in fact, Xi Jinping just a few weeks ago was quoted saying, we're ready for a trade war, economic war, a hot war, anything. We'll fight them all to the very end. And that's essentially what has been going on. There is no way that Xi can back down at this. In his culture, the way that they look at him, the heavenly mandate, how they actually are, he can't back down to Trump. So I want to talk about the parallels here, and I want to go through just a quick history lesson, and this is how history repeats itself. Now, of course, everybody knows about Pearl Harbor, but many people may not be the history buff that again, some of us are. And I see history repeating itself really bad. In fact, even down to China in its consulate burning documents. Like, even then I knew, like, something's going on. They've been planning this for years. There are changes that China made that will have big, big things to do with what this next war is, that they made 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. They've been preparing for this moment. They want to take #1 spot. So if you remember, Japan was actually in peace talks with the U.S. right before Pearl Harbor. Let's rewind back to this. And again, this is super oddly relevant right now. Rewind back to the 1930s, Japan was on a mission to dominate East Asia, and it kicked off by invading China in 1937. Many people don't remember this era, but starting the Second Sino-Japanese War. They wanted resources, oil, rubber, iron, basically all the stuff that they couldn't get there. And again, they wanted all of it. They were in an aggressive standpoint, basically taking over places. They were eating up military resources like we've never seen. Again, the catch was the U.S. wasn't happy about it. America had trade interests in China. This was back then in 1937, and wanted it to stay open for business and not become Japan's playground. Remember, Japan was more powerful than China back then. So the U.S. started hitting Japan where it hurt in trade. In 1938, they restricted exports. They put, again, on aviation fuel and scrap metal, key ingredients for Japan's war machine. Things got spicier when Japan took over French Indochina in 1940 and 41 to cut off China's supplies. The U.S. responded with the big bang bangs, a total oil embargo, in July 1941. Japan got over 80% of its oil from America. So this was a big hit. If you take this and put this in perspective, look at where China's crap goes. Who is the biggest consumers? The people that just throw the plastic wrapping everywhere. That would be us, folks. Us, and I would say a close second is the folks in Europe. We just gobble it up. I can't tell you how many people I know that are almost daily on Amazon, Temu, or Shein, just gobbling up this stuff. Again, and this is all the stuff that it's going to affect. Again, they started hitting Japan, right? Again, And of course, now let's jump to 2025. The U.S. and China have been in their own trade war since 2018, and it's still simmering. The U.S. has slapped tariffs on billions of dollars of Chinese good. Think electronics, steel, solar panels, trying to bring jobs back home and counter China's growing power. China's hit back with, of course, tariffs on American stuff like soybeans and cars. Doesn't this sound a bit familiar? This sounds just like what we have talked about a million times. I've talked about this over the last 5 years about how it is very similar. China now looks like Japan did back then. Again, it is absolutely crazy. And we all know what happened there. Of course, Japan opened up. They were in peace talks. There were all these good things and everybody was happy and it was all going good. And then all of a sudden it wasn't. Today, people are super excited about the stock markets having the biggest day since 2008, but many people don't realize how it works. Just like Dex said the other night, this switch that he put on was like a light switch. The tariffs that he placed on all of these different countries that he was in response to their tariffs was a light switch. He can turn them on, he can turn them off. He just reduced them all to 10% and basically dropped the tariffs on all of the countries that didn't retaliate. Meanwhile, towards China, he just raised it up. There are so many things here that is absolutely freaky because China is not a joke to mess around with. Again, China's got a massive military and tensions over Taiwan are already bad. We've talked about this numerous times. A trade war that cuts too deep, say a full tech embargo, might push China to act, not out of weakness, but to protect its rise. Pearl Harbor 2.0 is what I've been talking about for a long time. Probably not a sneak attack on Hawaii, but a clash in the South China Sea isn't hard to imagine. So are we doomed to repeat history? Not exactly. Back then, Japan was a resource-starved island with its back against the wall. China today is a global giant, less desperate and more calculated. Plus, nukes and global trade networks make all-out war a lot messier now. But there's the parallel, and again, I hope that people even pay attention. People don't realize that this is a trade war that has all of the signals, the same ones that went off. And a lot of history buffs are looking at this and going, holy crap, it's like deja vu. I want to show you this video again of Pete Hegseth today. Now, I've been talking about it. He had memos telling his people to talking about a war with China. There was a supposed meeting that was supposed to go on with Elon about a war with China. We, of course, have had many weird things over the last 4 years that have happened with Chinese military-age males coming in by the tens of thousands. And huge upticks. Of course, the property being bought out. It's absolutely crazy. Property right by our military bases. Now, some of the things that are happening today, again, Dow surges 2,900 points. Everybody is super happy. Post biggest gain since 2008. But remember, that's because he turned off the light switch. He basically dropped the tariffs and now everybody's happy. Don't confuse that with safety or security, because right now China is being put in a corner and China cannot back down. As far as their heavenly mandate goes, Xi might as well just resign. I mean, that's how bad he'll look if he ends up backing down. He's calling it blackmail. Again, we have all of the sources and things to back this up on the bibliography. But again, this is a big deal. And then U.S. is to take the Panama Canal. We've followed this over the last couple of weeks. There is big news in this. Pete Hegseth actually stood there and talked about this. Now, let me go over to this video. Let me unmute this and show you this clip. And there's a very, very important part right at the very end of this 21-second clip. I want you to listen to it carefully and see what you hear.
China did not build this canal. China does not operate this canal. And China will not weaponize this canal. Together, we will take back the Panama Canal from China's influence. And we will do this along with other capable, like-minded allies and partners.
Now, I don't know what you guys heard, but again, they are taking the Panama Canal. It's something that essentially there was a deal with BlackRock even that said, oh, we're going to, this is going to be great. And right away within those next 2 days, everybody was like, yeah, sweet. First of all, the whole BlackRock thing is a whole nother story. But besides that, that deal ended up getting paused and stopped. And they were like, no, hold up. We're not giving up control of it. Well, now Pete Hegseth is standing there with the military and saying that us and our allies are going to take Panama Canal. I mean, there's no other implication. He says that us and other allies are going to basically make sure that we have power over this. This is on top of probably 10 million other things that absolutely point out that we are now putting the stick to China. Again, right now, a lot of people have said for years that we were too separate, too intermingled for this to even happen. They thought everything is from China. You flip everything over, it's made in China. How would two countries like this separate? Well, that's exactly what I think is about to happen. People need to get their ducks in a row because the stuff that China does make, some super important things like antibiotics, again, that will stop coming. If during CV, if you realized 2019 through 2022, when there was that period where all of the containers stopped coming, we saw stores like Fry's just get deleted. 6 months, they stayed open with literally empty shelves. Imagine walking into one of those display stores that has the stuff for businesses. That's what it looked like. And that's what it ended up being. In the very last week of it, basically, people just walked in and bought all of the displays up because they weren't getting anything from China. That is what many stores are going to look like when this ends up going and popping off. If you think that Xi is going to back down on this, well, I am hoping you are right, because this is absolutely the way and the start of what we have to do to get unintermingled. And everything that is being said by this admin and by Pete Hegseth and everything else is saying that we are pulling out of NATO. We're pulling out, not just pulling out of NATO, but pulling out of the European stuff. And we're saying, hey, you guys got to take care of this. We'll help you where we can. We're going to even possibly pull troops out. We're going to cover that here in just a few minutes on our other show. And we are going to focus on China. That is exactly what's going to happen, because guess what? We can't win a peer-to-peer war against two major military powers. If you don't believe me, go to the Pentagon's own simulations. The only way that the U.S. would lose is if we were fighting on multiple fronts, multiple peer-to-peer adversaries. So I see exactly what is happening, and I think that a lot of people are going to end up seeing it too. And it's very, very soon. So again, get your ducks lined up. There's a lot more. We have tons of different sources here on the website. Again, China is basically saying this is blackmail. They're not going to back down. We'll see what ends up happening. And everybody will laugh. In 2 days, if something does temporarily get fixed, they put a Band-Aid on this. Everybody will be like, oh, see, nothing's going to happen. Just watch. And even the biggest Band-Aid in the world, or even if Xi somehow goes, oh, forget it, we're going to drop it and let's work together, and they all laugh. That is when they're going to be planning their 2.0. I'm telling you, this is easy to see if you've been following it for a long time, if you follow the news and what the media is saying and the patterns of how they push out Ganda, how they push out what's there, and how they're pushing out the good feeling right now. It's all artificial. Even this stock bump is. So I hope you join us over on that other show. Again, we don't want to see what we saw back in World War II. And again, there are so many other similarities. We could go an hour and find a bunch. Go look at for yourself. There is a ton of them. We don't want to see this ever again, and I hope we don't. Join us over on Marfoogle TV. Again, if you want to go get yourself some antibiotics and back yourself up, go over to marfooglenews.com/Jace. Again, you can actually get a kit with all of the most commonly prescribed and keep it up in your cupboard. Help support us, and it will help you get prepared. Again, go over to marfooglenews.com. You can find a full source list for every single article, tweet, video, picture, document right over there. We're going to be jumping right over to Marfoogle TV, so stay in the chat. You'll be ported right over. Share this with your friends and family, and tell them to get prepped up. It's not going to be the end of the world. It's going to be the start of a new one. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out.